Okay, welcome back. So we're on exam domain 1.4. So if you don't have the guide, grab it from above. So exam domain 1.4 talks about knowledge of high availability solutions for SAP on AWS. It talks about disaster recovery solutions available for SAP on AWS. And we're going to be breaking it out into three distinct videos, initially focusing on HA, then the network component of HA, and then the disaster recovery options available for you on SAP on AWS. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to drop a region in with an availability zone. So remember, within the AWS global infrastructure, there are a number of regions, and each region has multiple availability zones like this one. And each availability zone is a collection of discrete data centers. And what I'm going to do next now is actually map out the SAP instances required, and how we'll look at how they are single points of failures and how we can address that going forward. Okay, so now we have ABAP Central Services, which is a single point of failure. The additional application service, because they're horizontally scaling, and we can easily deploy one using an AMI, we're okay with that. But the database, again, is a single point of failure. And the SLA for a single EC2 instance within a single AZ is 99.5% of availability per month. So remember that. Now the question is how do we go about addressing these single points of failure with SAP on AWS? So next, let's drop in AZ2. So AZ2 will go right here, and we'll just label it AZ2. Remember, each region has multiple availability zones. The availability zones are usually within 100 kilometers of each other to give you that level of separation in case of natural disasters or outages, but also to minimize latency between AZs as well. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to map out the SAP systems in our secondary AZ. So we'll do that now. So we have our on-queue replication service to mitigate the outage of the single point of failure, which is the ABAP Central Services. And now we've actually added our secondary DB. So let's give this a little tag and a primary tag. Now, for this all to work across availability zones, there needs to be a level of replication ongoing between the database, for example, and the app tier as well. So let's add in HANA system replication, which means there's synchronization ongoing between the two databases like this. And this is HSR with sync on. So HSR, and that's sync on. And then we also have on-queue replication ongoing between the ABAP Central Services to mitigate this single point of failure all the way to our ERS. So now we have our SAP system deployed across two availability zones. We have replication enabled at the app tier and the database tier. But the question is how do you actually initiate a failover? Now this can be done manually using CloudWatch and CloudWatch alerts, where someone's notified and they trigger some form of scripting or so on, but that's still a manual action that needs to take place. But with HANA pacemaker clustering solutions from Red Hat and SUSE, for example, you can actually automate that failover. And in the case of Oracle or DB2, for example, you could use the SaaS protection suite to deploy those clusters at each of the tiers. So let's do that now. So we have a cluster at the app tier right here, and then we'd have a cluster monitoring the database tier right here. So the cluster deployed at the app tier will detect any outage at the ASCS and then fail over to the second node, which is the ERS, which would then become the ABAP Central Services, and your traffic will be redirected to this node, node 2 in AZ2. Now the cluster deployed at the database tier will do the same thing independently of the app tier. So if there's any outage on the primary database or any issue, you would fail over to the secondary DB, which would become your primary, and traffic will be rerouted to this database. The question is how is the traffic rerouted? And that's a key component of this high availability solution. It's known as overlay IP. And we're going to be discussing this at length in the next video just for overlay IP, because I know a lot of people get confused with overlay IP. So we're going to have a dedicated video just for that. Now, let me just jot out a key couple of points on the board above that you need to remember when you're prepping for the exam. Learn the reference architectures, the links above. There are 4 reference architectures for a single region. And then understanding which services, AWS services, EBS, EC2, EFS are regional versus AZ available within an AZ. And then the third component, which we're going to do a dedicated video on, is understanding overlay IP. Now make sure you follow me so you get notified when the next video comes out. Please like the video. Shout out to Vamsi again. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.